Welcome to Getting Ghosted, an intuitive soul collective podcast. I'm your host, Allie Horner. Hello, everyone. I am back and we have got a fun episode this week where I am reading some of the listener stories that you guys have shared with us through my website, which is intuitivesoulcollective.com, and on TikTok, where I am Spirit Speaker 25. That's my only account for readings, so do not get scammed. I recently put out a series of videos, and they were all things that your loved ones wish you knew about the afterlife. And then I did a series of videos on clairvoyance, and I'm going to do some on clairaudience, and so on and so forth, and some things that people may not realize about their abilities and gifts. I believe everyone has the same abilities, everyone has the same gifts. As you all know, my strongest ones, I get a lot of songs and do a lot of clairaudience. I also have a lot of visions. And so some of the first things that lit up for me were actually visions and seeing things. And I just didn't know that that's what was happening. So that was actually my stronger ability for a very long time. I also still am very, very, very clairvoyant and very visual. And, but we all have all of the abilities. So there's like psychic smell, psychic hearing, which is clairaudience, psychic sight, right? There's deep knowing, intuitive knowing, psychic knowing, that's claircognizance. And so I'm going to read some of the little anecdotes, stories, and then also questions that you guys have asked on our TikTok and through the website. And we'll kind of go from there. And if you ever want to submit your questions, if you ever want to ask a question of the guides or myself, if you ever want to share one of your stories, or share an experience and get a perspective on it, you're welcome to do so on my website, intuitivesoulcollective.com, or on my TikTok, which is Spirit Speaker 25 again. I also have a Substack as well under the same handle. I love this little story that Lane shared with us on TikTok on one of my videos. She said, "My brother took his own life in 2024. About 2 nights after he passed, I had a dream that we were able to FaceTime. He was sitting in a waiting room and was totally fine. I realized I was about to wake up and I told him how sad I was that we would never talk again. And he was so confused and said, 'Don't ever stop talking to me. I can still hear you.' I've been missing him so much. Glad this came on my FYP." And this was on the video where I was sharing things that your loved ones wish you knew about the afterlife. And so thank you so much for sharing that, Lane. Our loved ones truly are always with us. And yes, they can still hear you. So for those of you who have lost loved ones, whether they took their own life or they were hurt or killed by someone else, or they were killed in an accident or from an illness or just old age, no matter what happened to them or how they went, remember that they are still here for you. They still love you and they can still hear you. So keep chatting with them. Keep trying. As long as it's good for your mental health, keep trying. I will say that. Don't push yourself past where you know you need to be in your grieving process. This next one was from a TikToker named Gigi's Kitchen, and she said, "What about babies?" And so on the video, we were talking about how everyone goes home and everyone's all good and ends up exactly where they need to be in the afterlife or in heaven. That we just shift from a physical to a non-physical state, and that's what our loved ones want us to know and want us to remember, and they're always with us. And there was much more in that video. I'll link it in the show notes if you want to go watch it. And she had said, "What about babies? My son passed 2 days after he was born. All I do is wonder what he's up to and how he's doing." Yes. So I've got my guides over here and they are sharing. They're like, "We can answer this." So they're saying, and Joy's popping in and she said, "We love babies." And she said, "These little ones, these precious little ones have had many lives usually." And she said, "And all of us have a lot of lives no matter what. Everyone has been around the block a couple times when it comes to their lifetimes." And she is saying everyone is connected to each other's lives and can experience every lifetime. It's not like one linear lifetime after the next for only one soul. And she said, "Now all that said, babies come back again, usually after they've had a longer lifetime, and they often want to complete a cycle when they do so." And she said, "But there's a lot of different reasons that babies come back a little bit early. It doesn't mean that they didn't have a rich and fulfilling experience while they were there, even if they were only there for a moment. That still was a beautiful moment for them." And she's saying, "And we love babies and we take care of your babies when they get back here. And often what I've seen as a medium as well is that for people, even for people who have lost babies, what I often see is that that baby will give me the knowing that they were a baby when they passed. Sometimes even if they were born without, stillborn, born without life. Or something happens in the birthing process, or for babies who pass very shortly after being born, even they will show up for their moms or their dads, and they will show me the age that they would have been had they stayed alive. So they can still bring you that knowing that they're still growing and changing and that they're very much still around you. This happened to me really recently. I had someone come in for reach out for a reading, and she had wanted to talk to her son Lincoln, and immediately I saw this little boy who was popping out from behind trees and playing, and he wanted me to go out for a walk during our reading. Like I'd fully intended to sit in my apartment and do it, but I felt this almost like pull to go on a walk around the park. And it was because there were all these trucks around. He loved the sound of the trucks. And when I told her that, she said, "Oh my gosh, my husband works with trucks." And I was like, yeah, I was like, he loves the truck noises, and he's showing himself like watching them. And I kept having to apologize. I was like, "I'm so sorry. He wants me outside, but there's all these trucks and it's loud." And she was like, "No, that's got to be for my husband." I was like, okay. So that was good, like extra confirmation. And then I said, there was a couple other things that had come up. Like I had sensed some sort of suffocation or not being able to breathe for Lincoln. And I was like, it's really funny because I see him at this age where he's like this little kiddo, this tot, almost toddling around, almost like to age like 2 or 3. But I don't feel like he made it to that age. I'm getting like a baby. And she said, yes, he passed in the womb. And I went, okay, that makes a lot more sense why I'm getting that. And so, yeah, your little ones who pass as babies or just before being born, they definitely are still with you and love to hang out with you and spend time with you. And if you continue to try to connect with them, they can show you signs that they're very much present in your life. And again, they don't get stuck. They're not doing that because they're stuck or because they can't pass on. Everyone passes on. Everyone goes to the same place after they pass away. They just shift into a non-physical form. So you wanting to connect with them, wanting to know how they're doing, you're not keeping them here. So I just want to say that as well, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about that out in the world. And I just feel like it's really, really harmful to people that are still here. Oh, so this is a really cool question. Bilula said, do they like when we leave them their favorite drinks or things out by a shrine for them? I'm going to ask my guides that. So Eric popped in. He said, so now the concept of a shrine or an altar is kind of more, he's saying like cultural. And he said it exists kind of within certain cultures and therefore also in certain family lines or family systems. And he said you absolutely can imbue physical objects with love and positive intention. I've done this for people on several occasions within my own home where I set positive intention for babies before they were born, and they ended up having beautiful, lovely, healthy babies. Now, I'm not saying I did that by myself by setting up the altar, but sometimes blessing certain objects and setting intention can help with that energy coming in, help with calming mom's nerves, all sorts of stuff, protecting mom from negative energy, whether it's a spouse, well-meaning mother-in-law, postpartum things. I do really believe in the power of that type of energy work as well. And he said, yeah, exactly. And he said it also can set positive intent and protection around the baby while they're in mom's womb or before they come. And he said, now also, so think about it. That's a spirit, right? That's a spirit before they come in. And there are spirits who are, they're not ghosts like stuck here. They're spooky, scary type of ghosts. They're more so like loving, non-physical. Our spiritual selves always exist. And he's like, you got your physical human self, and he said you got to detach from the thinking that you are your body and human world, right? And so he said, but we don't want you to do that if it hurts your mental health. Don't, he goes, don't go floating off on us. He's showing like pulling people back down to earth, like they're balloons that are trying to float away. And he's like tying that little weighted thing to the bottom of the balloon string that they give you when you would like go to the shoe store and get new shoes or go to a certain restaurants, and it like anchors it down. And he's like, Siri, there we go. We need people to be a little bit anchored right now. I'm like, yes. And he said, so when it comes to creating altars or shrines, there's so many different ways, things you can do that for. And he said, your loved ones don't need you to do that, but they don't mind it when you do it either. And he said, because having more physical emblems of love in the world, items that are imbued with love, compassion, positive intention, can be really powerful and beautiful things. And he said, now you don't need them, but they can also be really helpful for processing grief, for almost like he's saying, like creating a sacred space for you to connect to your loved one or feel their connection or presence. He said, so he goes, he said, you do you, boo, like you do what you need to do, boo boo. But he said, but for example, Allie doesn't really have altars for loved ones. She lights candles sometimes, she has altars for like manifesting. And I was like, yeah, I do. I have like a little, I have like certain little rituals I've done before and stuff like that. My son is actually more into that type of thing. He likes stuff like that. And who knows if that'll stick. It's something that he likes and he's playing with now. And so Eric was saying exactly like, you can kind of try this out and play with it and see if you like it. If you like it, your loved ones are game. Like we're cool. We're like, yeah, man, let's do it. Let's go for it. But you don't have to do it. He's like, it's not like a requirement. And so he's showing someone, oh, that's so sweet. So he's showing like a grandparent having passed and someone setting a place at the table during a holiday for them and making sure the space is open for them to sit. And he said, now, for example, you don't have to do that, but if that makes you feel closer to your loved one, setting that space, setting that intention, leaving a certain spot open on the couch, you're welcome to do that. If that makes you feel better, feel closer to them, if it creates a sacred space for you. And he said it can be a really beautiful intent. He said, just don't get obsessed with the physical, like having to set the place, having to have the altar, having to have the items. He goes, don't get super attached to them. Don't get obsessed, right? Because we don't want you to ever think that if something happened and disrupted this flow, if you couldn't set the place, if you couldn't be around the altar, if something broke or something got lost or whatever, we don't want you to think that you can no longer have that connection to your loved one, because that's not true. They're with you whether or not you have that physical altar and those physical items. But if it makes you feel better, if it helps you with your grief process, if it helps you with your intention, by all means, go for it. He's like, go for it. We love it. Do it. And he said, loved ones also, just FYI, we don't attach ourselves to physical items. So don't worry about things like that. We don't attach ourselves to photos. He said some of the physical items can make it easier for you to connect with us, though. So there's some people who are more physical mediums. They like having something they can touch. They like having a picture they can see. But don't worry, because you can still connect with your loved ones even if you don't have those things. Okay? Well, this was such a sweet question. So Sarah on TikTok asked, can my dad experience the Odyssey and other movies I know he would have loved in life? And the answer was, heck yeah. And he showed himself with like the 3D glasses on. I don't know if the Odyssey has 3D, but what he's showing me is like, we're able to experience it in a whole new dimensional way. And he's like, it's almost like surround sound existing from within your body, and you get to experience it inside and out, because you don't have like a physical form to block a lot of the sound and sensation. And he was saying it's way more, he said copious amounts of sensation, like beyond what the brain and body can behold or fathom or even imagine. And he said it's so multisensory. It's really neat. And he's showing the water, like there being water scenes or something to do with water in the ocean. And he's saying, you know how there's those movie theaters where they're having more and more physical experiences, like they spray you with water, like they do these different things. And there's wind blowing and all this different stuff. He said it's more like that for us, where we can have more of that 3D experience in there. And he said we can have it and make it very immersive. And he goes, now here's a really cool, like a trippy thing about this. We actually, the spiritual world, can plant in ideas for people to recreate or do physical adaptations and or readaptations of famous works of art, books, give them ideas for movies. And he's even showing like sketch comedy stuff. There's one, it was like people, oh my God, I'm going to totally butcher this. I'm not even going to say it because I'm like, I don't remember what they called it, but he's showing me like people who did like TikTok series, and they're like comedy. He said, we help them with ideas. We help you guys with ideas. We give you guys the nudge, like, hey, like, like recreate this, put this into motion, try that, He said there's also other people on earth who are calling for these movies to be made, and we help that collective energy, that collective desire be connected in with, say, like a production studio, a script writer, a screenwriter, directors, producers, actors, etc. And that's where these ideas start to funnel through and start to get tossed around. He's like, so sometimes we have seen the movie before you guys have because we already know that it's coming. And he said, we know a lot of the stuff that's being created long before it's going to be created. Okay, returning to our other stories and comments. So I was looking through the comment section on that same video that'll be linked in the show notes. And I saw a couple people saying they aren't sending me signs. Why aren't they sending me signs? So here's a couple examples. So Samantha 5838 said, my dad passed away unexpectedly. He knows I'm obsessed with this type of stuff, yet I've had no signs, no dreams, nothing. It's so frustrating. I'm so sorry. I know that must be so hard. And then Maya Rayans said, why haven't I had any signs? I asked my sister to show up in my dreams or give me a sign, but nothing. She died and we were mad at each other. I feel so guilty. I didn't get to say goodbye or anything. I feel you on that. I went through a period of time too, like, even as a psychic medium where I was like, okay, guides, where have you gone? Like they fully cut me off for a month. I think I did a podcast episode talking about that. And I was like, where are the signs? Where is everything? I felt totally disconnected. Like I was walking around blindfolded. It was really hard. And there can be different reasons for this. So let's kind of dive in. I'll let, the guides and Sam and Eric and Joy come in to talk about it. So, I've got the team of light coming in. I'm seeing the golden 3, and I'm seeing council of 9 coming in, and then the golden 3, and then I'm seeing a figure 8 coming in. And they wear these beautiful golden robes, but they're like ethereal, like it's not an actual fabric we would have. It just like sparkles. It's almost like you could put your hand through it and feel it ethereally at the same time. So they seem to glow from the inside out too, which I think is so cool. Now they're saying, we know you want to have signs and synchronicities. We know you want to see physical evidence of your loved one's presence in your life and in the world. But the thing is, they're non-physical beings now. And that's a beautiful, wonderful thing. It's just as beautiful and wonderful as it is to be in the physical world and be a spirit imbued in a body. To be human is to be a beautiful being indeed. And we want you to remember that just because you're in the physical and they're in the non-physical doesn't mean that they aren't with you and that they aren't sending you love and kindness and empathy all the time. Your loved ones definitely are still with you. They may be communicating in other ways, and they're showing me you scanning through your physical senses. So sometimes our guides and loved ones are sending us signs and we just don't see them because we don't put it together. Maybe we're a little bit too in our heads, or our grief is really strong, so it makes it really hard. Maybe they're sending signs and we just don't realize that those are signs, but they don't want you to be obsessive about looking for physical signs. Instead, they're saying, we want you to scan through your outer senses. What do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you feel? Keep going through. Even taste you can have psychic taste, and it often comes with smell. It's hard to describe. It can be outside your body and come from inside of your mind at the same time, where it's almost like you're like, whoa, now I'm craving that thing, or whoa, it feels like that is literally in my skull. It's hard to describe. It almost appears in the bridge of your nose for a split second. It's so strong, and then it's gone. And there's no logical place it could have come from, right? And they said that's exactly it. So your loved ones can be communicating with you through your senses. They can also be communicating through your own thoughts, or telepathically. So you might be thinking about something, and let's say your thought doesn't have sound, right? A lot of people don't have sound with their thoughts, which is totally okay, very normal. And then your loved one, like your sister or your dad, they may be responding back and forth with you telepathically or sending you ideas. And you wouldn't hear it, right? You wouldn't see them there. You wouldn't see a sign, but that doesn't mean they're not communicating. Sometimes our loved ones, we're kind of struggling with dreams, or they're not showing up in our dreams, but they're showing up in other ways. And so for people that are struggling with, I really want them to come through this way, and they're not, and what do I do? Well, maybe start to learn about different ways that they could be coming through and communicating with you, because I bet they're showing up in other ways. The guides are also showing me and said, what about intuitions and synchronicity? Intuitions are a huge one. You having a gut instinct to turn your car right instead of left, which makes you avoid a fender bender. You having an instinct to go here or go there, and then you bump into an old friend, or you the other day found a brand new bookstore that I did not know had opened nearby with a little coffee bar in it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally going to come here and work. I've been wanting a place like this. And lo and behold, that is exactly where my loved ones and guides took me for that day. But they weren't telling me to go and look for it, and as in a clairaudient conversation or a physical thing. I wasn't seeing the place in my head beforehand or being shown it. It was more like I had an instinct, a pull to go and drive down a certain street. And I didn't know why I was having it. I just felt it. And so I got in my car and I went and got my coffee for the day, and, had done my walk and everything, and when I was driving home, I had to go out of my way to go down this one street, right? Like blocks out of my way. But that's what I felt really clearly, is I need to go down here. So I did. And that's where I saw it. And I went, oh my God, I know what you were trying to show me this place. And that can be your loved ones too. Sometimes it's just a gut instinct to go somewhere, to do something, and watch for those, like one thing leads to the next, leads to the next, leads to the next type of synchronicities that can come from nudges and pulls and things like that. Inklings, intuitions, ideas that pop in your head, that can be your loved ones too. And sometimes it might be even things like hearing songs that pop up in your head, movie lines in your head. I get a ton of movie lines and songs. It could be finding the right book at the right time. There's so many different things. Things other people say to you in passing, or conversations you overhear. Huge way that the other side works with us. Sometimes they send animals your way. Sometimes it's someone's dog that runs up to you. You never know. And so there's so many different ways they can communicate. And I would highly, highly recommend learning about that more. I have some classes and courses. There's other psychics and mediums that have classes and courses out there. You can totally read up on this. You could get free books at the library or through the Libby library. It's their version of Audible. And if they don't have certain things, you can request them to order them in. If you go to the library, use a library card. There are great books by, the one I have right here is Sonia Choquette, great one. She has Ask Your Guides, Read Life Accurately. I love Marianne DeMarco's books. She has a couple about mediumship and intuition. You could try, it just slipped my mind. One of the ones I always recommend as well is Laura Lynn Jackson's book. She does have a book on signs, which I love. But if you're already not seeing signs, I wouldn't try to push for signs. I would try to think about, wait, is there maybe a different way they're trying to communicate right now? And so you could start with signs if you want and like add it in there. But the light between us is a great one. Because listening to her story about how she experiences the other side, it can help kind of like open up some doorways in your own mind where you're like, oh, wait, that's been happening to me too. Is that spirit connection? I didn't know that. And so sometimes hearing other people's stories can be helpful. And then Tyler Henry's book, I think it's called Between Two Worlds. I might be butchering it. Yeah, Between Two Worlds. That one is great as well. It's about his story, and he does have some little good like Q&A sections in the back. And then I also want to say, I feel like Tyler Henry has a ton of integrity. And I just really like his teaching process, his learning process. He's admitted even or said recently, I wrote this book or that book, 10 years ago or 12 years ago or whatever it was. And I've kind of changed my mind. I've learned more since I wrote that. And I'm like, I love that. That's so true. We all keep learning as we go, as we experience more and more and more. And that's how human life is. That's how it's meant to be. So those can be really great ones to get started with, just learning about the other side and how it works. And also, if I ever recommend books and you're like, I don't know if that one feels right. Let's say like you go to the library or you go to the bookstore and you're looking on the shelves and you're looking for the books I recommended, but they don't feel right when you get there, pay attention, because your guides may be trying to get you to another book or another one that would resonate with you more, that might be like right next to the one that I recommended. So maybe that's the one that you're meant to go to. Okay. So just kind of keep that in mind. Like sometimes things are like a breadcrumb trail. And you'll land on the thing that you're meant to land at. Like you'll feel it when it's time, or you'll know it, or you'll get that zing, that pull, but you got to really trust that intuition. Okay. And sometimes it's not always that you're going to feel it really strongly. You just kind of like got to be willing to try something new and get started. But reading about this stuff and learning more and more can really help. And this is also why I know a lot of people, they really struggle with reading. Like I know people who have, attention stuff going on, dyslexia, etc. And so you can also try, obviously that's why I have the podcast, but you can also try like listening to other people's podcasts or doing the audiobook as well. Oh, and okay, someone who asked me, Allie, real question here. If something you love dies with this knowledge that you have, how would, or how was your reaction to it? It is really like a, I will see you later, or is it really like a, I will see you later and you're okay because you know this is how it is with how the afterlife works? And they said, I didn't lose anyone yet, and I believe in everything you say, but I'm not sure I will be that evolved when it really happens. Oh, this is such a real question. So essentially they're asking, with all the knowledge that I have and the fact that I talked to the other side, am I just like, yeah, cool, whatever, when someone dies? No. I'm still very much human. It still impacts me when people die. I cry for you guys. I cry for the people that I do readings with all the time after I get out of readings. Sometimes I cry a little bit in readings. I'm usually pretty grounded and able to keep your feelings separate from mine so that I can stay focused in the reading. But I still grieve people. Absolutely. I sobbed over my dog that died 8 years ago, last week. Sobbed, openly wept while I was on a walk. And he was like coming in, and he knows, like I still connect with him quite a bit. And he pops in really strongly first phases, and then he'll be kind of, not around as much for a couple months. And I literally was like openly weeping. So, I totally cry. And I do have, people around me that have lost people really close to them, where I've, definitely cried for their parents who have passed, or grandparents, or children who have passed, or, babies that they've lost through miscarriage or otherwise. I definitely still cry. I think it's totally okay to know that and still have the connection to the other side. Sometimes I cry over the person who's passed, or the pet who's passed, while even though I'm actively still talking to them in their spiritual form. They understand and I want you guys to know that and understand that, because this person was like, I don't know if they said, I'm not sure I'll be that evolved when it really happens, is what they said in their comment. And I don't think that losing the grieving process is evolving. You know what I mean? I think it's a beautiful thing to have the groundedness and clarity of like, of course we still continue on after we pass. And I think it's absolutely okay to still feel so much love and for someone and for their physical human presence in your life. I think it's okay to still feel grief when their physical time in this world is over. I also am never going to tell anyone you shouldn't grieve, or that you shouldn't be angry or upset about the way someone passes. Even though there can be so many different explanations and they're okay when they get to the other side, it's totally okay to be pissed off about how someone passed. There's someone who passed recently where I've been like, I feel I'm sad for you. I'm sad for, the people in your life. And I'm also pissed off at you for doing this, for like how you passed. This was like, my judgment was like, I just can't believe that you did this. Right. And they're like, yeah, I get it. I understand. And they don't take any offense in you being upset or angry. And I'm like, I appreciate that we can still talk. I appreciate that you're still here chatting with me. And also I'm like, I'm kind of pissed off at you right now. And they're like, yeah, That's okay. You're human, you know? And so, yeah, like we can still feel all range of emotions. And I don't know about all the other mediums out there and what their perspectives would be about things. That's mine. I do find that, once I let myself feel everything, they often will give me different perspectives on stuff, but they never are like, you shouldn't feel this or you shouldn't feel that. They will give us a higher perspective or higher understanding if or when we're ready, and if or when it's going to be good for our mental health. If it's going to do more harm than good for us, they'll kind of avoid trying to give a higher perspective or other ways to look at things because it's not helpful for our psyche, and they don't want to do that harm to us, right? Again, also like your guides, your loved ones, they understand if you're grieving, they understand if you're upset. They don't fault you for that. They're like, damn, I was upset when people died when I was alive too. I get it. Like they understand, they remember, so they don't feel weird about it, nor do I. So I definitely do still cry or experience grief over people and pets that have passed. Jess said, how do people who get stuck end up that way? Well, they don't get stuck. That's just a human perception. How are there like spirits who are evil or mean-spirited? There aren't any. Again, we've done a whole bunch of episodes in the podcast about that, so you can go back and listen to those if you're curious or if you're wondering. But no, there are no spirits who are evil or mean-spirited. But there are explanations for why people think that way. But that's all in those other episodes. I can link those up in the show notes for you guys. Ooh, this is a great question. Candini Martini asked, can they see the past things they might not have seen while here on Earth? Truths about certain situations. So can they see like the behind the scenes, understand things more deeply or see the truth of things finally? And the answer is yes. They get that perspective and understanding during their life review. And it's also part of them coming to full realization. And that is how they're able to be non-judgmental, to encompass so much love and higher understanding. Eric and Sam over here, like with their arms folded, sitting, like nodding, like, yep. And they're like, that's part of what allows us to be compassionate and non-judgmental. And that's what allows us to not steer you wrong and to give you guys higher perspective when you're asking for it and when you're willing to hear it, is because we can already see that. And they said there's really no harm in seeing the truth or seeing higher perspective. They said it's like that expression, and the truth shall set you free, Eric said, and he put his pointer finger up. I think I'm going to pause here and we'll maybe do a part 2 of questions and answers. I would also love to talk a little bit more about clairvoyance and all that fun stuff on the podcast too, if you guys want to hear it. And soon I'm going to have my course coming out, and it's going to be about developing your spidey senses, psychic abilities, intuition, and starting to connect with the other side. So if you are interested in that, whether you want to be a professional psychic medium and do readings for people, or whether you just want to sharpen your intuition in your own life, just stay tuned, stay connected to the podcast, follow and subscribe here, share it with your friends that you think might be interested, and make sure that you are signed up for my newsletter on my website as well. And because I tend to email out first, and I tend to post things in my Patreon group first, even in the free group. So make sure you are staying subscribed and updated in those areas. Speaking of Patreon, last week we did a really fun class that was how to learn how to read energy 101. And we went over the very basics of learning how to read energy. And we had people getting to do practice things. They all got to practice tuning in and reading the energy of a book I had in front of me. And these were all people who were very beginner. And there was like 1 or 2 that were more intermediate, advanced level, and most of them were very beginner. I gave them some specific techniques to try, but some of them were just coming in like, I've never done this before. And I shit you not, a lot of them got details right about the book. Like some of them were so spot on, and some of them were like, ooh, okay, I got this color and I got that, and this was right. And then someone was like, well, I picked up something totally different. The book I was looking at was blue, for example. Someone else was like, I see this yellow one and it looks like this. And I was like, you want to know what's funny? The book I was focusing on was this blue one, but there was a book sitting right under it that's yellow and says this on it. And the person was like, oh my God, so I saw the other one. And I was like, you did see a book that was in front of me. So anyhow, I wanted to mention that as well. So you can go into the Patreon group and you can play with some of those practices and do some of that fun stuff in there, or take that class if you would like to. And you can take the class on your own separately, or you can join the Channelers and Changemakers or the Ascend tiers in Patreon. That's the 2 highest tiers, and you get a whole bunch of classes. Like, you can sign up like right at that moment and do a whole bunch of classes. So if you are interested in that, that'll be linked in the show notes. And again, if you have questions that you want submitted for the podcast, to be featured on the podcast, if you have stories you want to share, all of that fun stuff, feel free to send those in through my website. Thank you.